Welcome back to the Just Make It Pretty podcast. Today, we are talking about whether or not builders really care about their buyers and what kind of customer experience we are offering all of our buyers. So if you are interested in that, I have a guest with us today that's going to dive really deep into what our buyers expect versus what that experience actually turns out to be. So I'm really excited to share and to have this conversation with him. So let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Just Make It Pretty podcast, the slightly unhinged marketing podcast for home builders and beyond. I'm your host, Sarah Haynes, also known as the Pixel Wizard, and my goal is to tackle the tough stuff that goes in behind the scenes in marketing and offer actionable tips, creative insights, and a little bit of humor to spark some creativity. I'm so glad you're here. Now let's get started. So my guest today is Brett Steele, VP of Homebuilder Partnerships at Foundation. And like I said in the intro, we're going to be talking about what buyers expect. And I'm so excited to have you here, Brett. Thank you for giving your time today and diving into this topic with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here with you, Sarah. Yeah, I'm excited to hop into this.
Awesome. Me too. But before we get too deep into our topic, I'd love if you could do a little introduction, who you are, how you got into this industry, and what brought you to this moment here.
Yeah, I fell into the industry just through sheer luck. So, in a past life, I was, sorry to say, a bit of a finance bro. I was working in finance, wholesaling mutual funds to private banks, which is just as boring as it sounds. And I knew I just didn't want to make rich people richer. That wasn't really in the cards for me. So, I know I needed to make a change. Started doing some research and realized that there was a lot of top real estate companies in that best places to work list. So I went straight for the top. I went straight to Zillow, which is consistently up there, and I got a job on their new construction team. And once I got a taste of the industry, like many other people that I've heard on your podcast, I haven't left. So that was about a decade ago, which is very weird to say. So that's how I got in the industry. The customer experience and what I do today is very much been a passion of mine for a while now. So I grew up in the retail and restaurant industry. Those were some of my first jobs. So really starting in customer service. But I think things definitely took a turn for me when I actually did the college program at Walt Disney World. So if people don't notice, yes, Walt Disney World hires a ton of interns every year. I was definitely that Disney family. I think I'd been there about 35 times before I was even in college. But I always knew it was like a quote unquote magical place. But when I worked there, they really peel back the layers. And as they start training you, they not only train you on the what, but the why. And so you have that mentality, little things they would say how many janitors do you think are in Disney World? And people are like, I don't know, 500 or something. They're like 100% of our workforce is custodial, because if anybody sees something, then they do something about it, from the CEO down. So it really just trains you to have that mentality of, if you think you can improve something in the guest experience, you're empowered to do it. So I guess that was the job that kind of impacted me to have the mindset that I have today. My personal motto is do better, and I think it aligns with how we think about things here at Foundation.
That's so cool. So I knew about the college program for Disney, but I've never met anyone that actually went through it. And they
Yeah.
totally are the king of customer experience. But I have to know, were you a character? Did you run a ride? What did you do? Can you even tell us? I
So
know it's secret too.
yeah, I had the best job. I drove the monorail, which is
Oh,
crazy. It's a 64-ton vehicle, and they allow a college student to just operate it. Yeah, it was a blast, but
we can't really
yeah.
take a wrong turn. It just goes
No,
on.
it's pretty easy to keep it on track there. Yeah.
That's funny. That's awesome. I love that story. And you're right. Pretty much everybody that I've talked to, they're like, I started and then I just love the industry and I stayed here. So I think that's a special thing about our industry. And I'm excited because this topic, we chose a really provocative title for this
Yeah.
topic. Do you even care? But I do feel like there are buyers that sometimes don't care about, or don't feel like their builder cares about them, or that it's just this transaction. And I think that's heightened by the fact that this is such an emotional experience, buying a house, especially for first time home buyers. But it's always an emotional thing. This is where you're going to live. It's where your grandkids are going to come. It's where you're going to raise children. And to not have a great experience with that is it's shitty. Like I also had that kind of first home buying experience where like my builder was just like, sign here and we'll tell you when you can move in. And it was like,
Right. Yeah.
oh God, like I was very anxious and didn't get that hand holding experience. So I know it's a problem, but I do think that builders do care about their buyers in most cases. So what do you think about this topic? Do you think like builders care, and why does that happen with buyers?
Yeah, I mean, the title was meant to be provocative, right? I definitely know that buyers care or builders care about their buyers, right? The obvious answer is yes. But
Yeah.
we as an industry haven't kept pace with how they're being treated elsewhere in the world by companies that they buy things from. So buyers just don't exist in a vacuum. They're being interacted with a myriad of other companies who are way more technologically advanced than our own industry. And that hurts us and makes it seem like we might not care as much. And when we introduce undue friction into the home buying process compared to other experiences where there isn't any, this is what can make buyers think we don't care enough to invest in their experience. We do truly care about our partners, but we haven't given them the experience to prove this to them.
Yeah. No, that's true. There was another guest on the podcast I was talking about that with Amazon. You can track your order from the second that you order it all the way until it shows up at your door. But like you can't see a fraction of that when you buy a house, and it's the biggest purchase that you're ever going to make potentially.
Two kids in school, one's in daycare. Like I can tell you what she had to eat. I can tell you how many times she used the potty. I can tell you like how long she napped for. And yet, like when framing goes up, like I might get like a text message from a salesperson. It just doesn't really make sense in this day and age. And
Yeah.
it's not like a hit to the builders that we work with, but this technology does exist in other industries, and we just need to align with how buyers are treated elsewhere.
So where do you think those gaps really like the biggest gaps are in that process? And do you hear this directly from buyers, or how do you feel like that information gets to us?
Yeah, I mean, we could do an entire podcast on just what the buyer journey looks like today, right? But in my mind, like there are three distinct phases. There's the searching phase, there's the closing phase, and there's the ownership phase. And I think the biggest gaps are forced friction in the search phase, storytelling during the closing phase, and engagement in the ownership phase. So for many buyers, like search starts with the portal, right? It's the Zillow, the Redfin, the Realtor, now Homes.com's in the game, and they spend a good amount of time kind of searching for their home. Very few buyers know they want new construction, so they're looking at resale alongside new con, and but they're just in search mode. And when somebody's in search mode, think about it when you're doing a search for anything else, like they mostly want to be left alone. These are the peepers, the just lookers. Oh, we're just swinging by the open house just to see it. And I've learned that when people are in this mode, there are a few things they do not want to do when they're in this phase. Answer a call from someone that they don't know, give up their information to get reached out to before they're ready to talk to somebody, and add unnecessary friction to the process. So think of gated information, right? So like a couple of years back, there was a whole trend of enter your email address to download this brochure. Why I should just be able to find this online. I shouldn't need to give up my information. Download this app before you've made a decision to move forward. I spent a year in self-touring, and even seeing the demand that's there now, I would also include forcing people to walk into a model, especially when others in the market maybe not doing that. When you add unnecessary friction to the search process by by comparison, and believe me, people are comparing you to the resale homes and the other builders in the area, you're already harder to work with than anyone else in your market offering less resistance. So, who likes to buy a car? Nobody. That's because the process is super difficult. And that's
Yeah.
why the online options are gaining traction. Is like, why would you do anything to get in the way of how a buyer wants to make a purchase? And usually it's because, oh, that's what you and your sales leader want, but the customer is always right. So it just doesn't seem like a winning strategy for optimizing kind of the customer experience. So that's that forced friction during the search phase. Then they go into the closing phase. And for specs, as little as a month. For builds, it can be between 3 and 9 months. So you got a lot of time here. This is where I see builders struggle the most because it's such an extended period of time. Is this is the time to build your brand, build your reputation. You've got buyers on this absolute high when they like sign this contract, and then they just wait and they
Mhm.
wait and they wait. But the more time you have, the more you have to like time to educate, to tell your story. story and envelop them in your brand and your team. So builders have all the time in the world to storytell, but they're struggling doing this. So I think that's the biggest gap in the closing phase. And then you hand the buyer some keys and they now own the home. So we're in the ownership phase. When they reach out, it's usually to warranty, and usually that's it. It's just warranty and then customer care, maybe if they have a team. We hear from buyers after close. Some builders call them nuisance calls. That's a huge red flag for me. You have a buyer in one of your homes. Why does the value of your brand have to stop? Why should a partnership with Steele Homes end at close or at warranty? We mostly just stop engaging with them or providing them anything of value once they've already bought a home. Yet the average buyer only stays in the home for 3 to 5 years. So imagine if you kept your brand front and center, providing strategic value throughout the year. So that's why I think the biggest gap in the ownership side is engagement.
Yeah, that's a really good point too. To take it to the brand development side and keeping your brand, like I feel like so many people just don't understand what branding is and how important that is. And I made a joke a recent episode. I was like, you can go back and edit your Google review. So why are we not more worried about this? Like these people are gonna be happy, hopefully, by the
Yep.
time they sign and they move in, but they can go back and be like, turns out actually this was really terrible because we moved in and there were these problems and now suddenly they don't care.
Right.
So I've seen that happen a lot with reviews, and it's a nobody ever likes that. Nobody wants that.
Right.
Builders are like, oh shit, but there's not as much effort put into that like post purchase experience. So I definitely agree with you. That's a huge gap there. What other, obviously poor reviews are like what comes to my mind, but like what other things do you feel like are the costs of not fixing those gaps?
Yeah, I mean, lost referrals, unhappy owners, poor reviews. The people who want to go nuclear will call their local news station and you'll get automatic bad press from it. It's very hard to quantify, but there definitely is a kind of a cost of not investing there. And what the way that I try and position this is like, what does 1% less market share look like in your market? Because this definitely starts at the margins and you're going to lose those one or two people who could have helped you like hit goal. And all else being equal, like the experience wins. If you have the same incentives, the same like great locations, mostly the same product, what experience are you offering? That's going to be your differentiator.
I know that trust has to be built early, and it starts like a lot of subconscious things as well. So, does your social media match the messaging on your website? Does this person that's calling me sound like the same person that I talked to in the model? Like those kind of things. Things start very early and people start making judgments about you and the company very quickly. But so, how can you start creating that, in your opinion? Like, how can you start creating that trust and connection early before they even sign the contract?
Yeah, I mean, this is the ultimate question for marketers, right?
Yes.
But I think it comes down to like three things, really. It's authenticity, it's transparency, and it's just effective communication. So I think for most people, like 90% of their research is done before they even step foot in the door, before they actually interact with you in any way, shape, or form, right? And it's not just our generation, right? It's everyone has just been trained to do their research before they make a decision. So the more you do early on to explain your brand, what you build for and why you build, the better. Because trust me, if you have like a blog, if you have a podcast, if you have video, put it on your website, it will get consumed. That's one almost guarantee. A lot of builders that I know with, like, that I work with, like, they do a ton of charity work and like foundational work. Is that front and center? I don't, it's sometimes hard to see that. It would be nice to know, oh, the builder that I'm choosing, they are investing back into the community. They are doing the St. Jude's house. And that's actually something near and dear to my heart. Like they are doing these things like holiday drives and all that. And yet, so I think it's like the more authentic to your brand that you can be, the more transparency, the more you can peel back the layers of what building with you is going to be like and over communicate it. Whatever you think is good communication, add 50% because like people are going to miss stuff and things fall through the cracks as they always do. But the more you can get it out, the better.
I'm always the tease because I'm like one of those people that's I am not going to call somewhere or like just walk in. That's crazy. And so if you don't have something online that I can see, like I'm just not going to buy there. And they're like, "Oh, you're such a millennial." But I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's not just me. That's a lot of buyers today. They do, like you said, research online. And I do not want someone reaching out to me necessarily before I'm ready. So I think there's a disconnect between like your buyer's goal and what your goal is as the builder trying to make this sale. You're so hyper focused on your thing, they're hyper focused on their thing, and it's not
Right.
necessarily lining up.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, the funny story is like when I was doing self-touring, like everyone was like, "Oh, it's a millennial technology, right? Self-touring." The heaviest users of self-touring are actually the boomer generation. And when you start to dig into the why, I would talk to my parents about this and I was like, "Hey, like we have this stat. What do you think about it?" And they're like, "We don't like salespeople. Like every salesperson to to that generation is a sleazy used car salesman. No, it
yeah,
doesn't matter if you're a consultative, it doesn't matter anything. Like that is who you are. And the busiest day at any used car lot is Sunday. Even though you can't test drive it, even though you can't talk to it, it's still the busiest day. And why? Because there's no salespeople there. Even if they just want to go look at the car, they can't even get in it. But that's still better to them than coming during normal business hours when they could come and because they would have to be engaged. They just aren't ready yet.
yeah.
So it's one of those things where it's like, it doesn't matter, like, it's not a generational thing. It's just this is how people want to buy now. They don't want that undue friction. They don't want to have to download an app or enter in their email address to download your brochure to get anything. Like, just make it easy to work with them, and that experience will pay dividends.
Yeah, for sure. I can't even tell you the level of anxiety I have if I have to walk onto a car lot. I'm just like, no, please, please, I get out of the car, like, please don't, please stay back.
I mean, even down to like the grocery store, right? Like
Yeah.
self-checkout is the most popular line, and there's one person manning the manual one, and like it can be an empty line, and everyone's still going up. So
Yeah.
it's just make it easy to do business with you, and like I
Mhm.
said, it'll pay dividends.
Yeah. There is, I totally agree. But I also think that there's a shift at some point because, like, in the beginning, I'm like, I want to be left alone. Let me do my thing. And then once I get into the process, then I'm like, okay, but hold my hand because
Oh
this
my
is
God.
scary.
Yep.
So we have to know when does that shift happen? And so do you think builders make that shift? Do you think that's a problem? Do you think we're prepared to know when to engage with our buyers?
I think so. I think builders are really good at realizing once somebody like is ready, then we're doing a really good job of it. And builders are doing a good job of figuring out like their internal communication between teams, Slack, etc. Like they're pretty well organized there. No builder says our team uses their CRM perfectly, but they are getting better at it. But I think where we drop off is the actual communication to the buyers once they have made a decision. So most of the time, like it's you could be a top 20 builder, and this communication is still happening on personal devices. So it's individual text messages, group text messages, email thread after email thread. And where's the visibility there for leadership? How are you ensuring that your brand is being represented the way that you want it to be represented throughout that storytelling process that I was talking about? What happens if that person goes on vacation or, heaven forbid, leaves the company? And then it becomes like a he said, she said, oh, Brett said that he was going to give us these upgrades and they were part of it. And you don't want to deal with that. So I think we have an opportunity within the industry to improve there. Our co-founder Derek is very type A like me, and he tells this great story about when he bought a new construction house. He's got this, I've seen his email inbox. It's basically a zero inbox. So he's hyper organized. He's got his Google Drive and his Gmail super organized. And he's, what options did I choose? Who, this person just reached out to me. Who are they? Have I ever talked with them before? Where did they send that thing? And for someone like us, like that are hyper organized and on top of everything, if someone like us has those problems, I cannot imagine what an average buyer like what they run into when it's like the fifth different threat. I'm starting this group text message with your lender involved, so you can ask them any question. I'm starting this one. It's just it's too much, and there's no visibility for leadership. So I think that's where the biggest opportunity is for us.
Yeah. So basically what I'm hearing you saying is like there's two sides of the communication. There's your buyer communication and then your internal communication. And you're saying we're doing pretty good on the internal side, but not so great on the buyer side. Is
In
that
terms
what
of,
I'm
yeah, in
understanding?
relation to customer experience, 100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, because I definitely seen like the CRM use not being perfect. And we're always talking about like how can we make that better? But I think you can't necessarily have a good buyer experience if you're not communicating internally. And there are a lot of handoffs in that process. So it's good to hear that you think we are getting better because that's something that I feel like I work with a lot of builders on is we have to bring our teams together, sales and marketing and everybody. That's my two general ones, but we have to talk internally and make sure that we're all working towards those same goals.
Yeah, definitely. And listen, I was in OKC last week, met with a builder who was like, "Hey, our CRM is doing a great job of this, that, and the other thing. What we're not capturing are like the buyer personas, so like the family makeup, like whether or not they're interested in any hobbies, stuff like that." And we had a very open conversation about it. And we're like, "Hey, if the CRM's not capturing that, let us have a go at it. Let us help build that out." And they had 100 ideas for us. The best thing about working at Foundation now, Sarah, is we have good ideas every once in a while, and maybe 5% of the time, but the builders that we work with have phenomenal ideas all the time. And so we go out and we listen to them, we build what they want into the product, and we're constantly making it better from them.
That's cool. No, I feel like more companies, if they did that, everything would be better. All of our products would be better because like, you got to listen to the people that are actually using it. So how do you guys think about you had identified like one of the gaps being like post close and your warranty, customer care situation. How can you improve that communication between the handoff from when the sale closes to that part of the process?
So we're basically building what we think that like an effective handoff is. And it's not, this can be done through automation, through a builder's backend ERP system. It can be manual, however the builder wants to operate. But there's usually a point in time where, hey, we hand you the keys and now you've gone from the closing section now to the ownership side. It has to be simple. It has to be, in our mind, builder branded. We want the builder's brand to be front and center the entire time, but make it easy. Don't make somebody download a new app or do anything new. Like it's just one button on our end that all of a sudden they now have access to everything to help them manage their home for the entire lifetime that they're there. And we digitize all the documents that they had. We digitize all the options that they have. So, the appliances, their owner manuals, all the registrations for their appliances are through there, down to what paint colors do they have. So we see like a 20 to 30% reduction in warranty calls and OSC calls because that's apparently what people need to know. Okay, my kid drew on the wall. What color was this? All of that lives in the builder's app that's powered by Foundation, but your buyer would never see that brand. And it's all just internalized so that they have that information and therefore they have value in their app for as long as they're in that home. So we talked about like how do you keep your brand front and center for these people if they still see value in understanding every appliance that's in their home and understanding all the details for every faucet and like roof shingle and all of that, then they'll have your app and you'll have the ability to reach out to them, touch base with them via email and push notifications. But we're seeing more and more builders focus in on that ownership experience instead of just the closing side of things.
So if we chat just a little bit about Foundation. So it sounds like your app is sort of that initial contact to all the way through to your warranty. Like it's the same app that you set up for builders. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, and we say app, but it's an online portal. So buyers can get to it via downloading an app. About 75% of them do that. The others are going through a portal. There are some people who just won't do either. And we also send out all the updates through email. But yeah, it's just the builder branded, simplified, elegant way of sitting atop all of the existing underlying systems that a builder has, create a single pane of glass for both the buyers and your internal teams to effectively communicate back and forth. So the buyer's kept in the loop every step of the way. We're usually introduced right at contract, and like buyers are basically said, "Hey, like thanks for buying a Steel Home. You're going to download the Steel Homes app. It's through the Steel Homes Android or iPhone store, Apple Store, and all communication, all updates, all of your details are going to be within the Steel Homes app." That gets it all off of the personal devices. It allows visibility for leadership. Our AI analyses are helping builders understand which conversations should leadership get involved with because there's some undue friction and the buyers are feeling a little bit like they aren't being heard, and which ones should sales teams start going after for referrals, because we truly believe that if you double down on the buyer experience, you'll get more referrals, you'll get more testimonials, you'll get repeat customers. We also usually only talk about this from a buyer standpoint, but also think about it from the agent side. If
Yeah.
you do have buyers, we allow collaborators to invite whoever you want to also either download the app or use the portal or get the emails. So, spouses are invited, parents are invited, children are invited for the older generations, realtors are invited. And that way, like, they're also getting the updates. They're also getting every status change that's happening with your home. So it's not just brand for you and direct to that buyer, it's to everyone else that they've invited as a collaborator. So if you think about the agent side, if that agent has 2 or 3 homes under contract with Steele Homes, they're getting updates from everything. They're like, wow, like I'm in the loop for everything. And again, that's just something that they're going to keep on their phone. They have Steele Homes front and center. They know, oh, they took care of my people really, they did a great job with the communication. I'm going to keep bringing people to them because it's more than what any other builder that I've worked with is doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, do you get any friction from like sales teams or marketing teams where they're like, and when you're integrating this technology, what are some of the like things that come up, if
Yeah,
any?
so I heard my friend David on your previous podcast talk about CRM integrations and or
Mhm.
implementations and heaven forbid ERP implementations that I've heard up to 18 months. With
Yeah.
Foundation, we truly believe if it's not simple and if it doesn't reduce the amount of work that somebody's going to do, then this isn't worthwhile for them. So we've
Mhm.
designed it with simplicity in mind. We've designed it to overlay and integrate with any underlying system that they have so that it's not more work, it's less. So think automation in terms of little things like our co-founder Derek was in the industry selling homes out of Lennar garages for the first couple of years of his career. And he was like, hey, we've got a new home orientation scheduled for this week. And then he'd have to go back a couple of days later. Hey, just a reminder, new home orientation walkthrough is tomorrow. The day of, hey, just a reminder, like we automate all of that. You set a date for when things are happening. The system does all of the updating for you. No double entry. We try and reduce any amount of work that you'd have to do. Like you're not updating the CRM and then coming into Foundation to do something there. It can all pass through. Like we have some builders who want to automate everything, and we have some builders who still want their hand on their sales teams to have like their hand on the trigger, their construction teams, and do it a little bit more manual. But it's again, we align with how you want to work. It's not how we think about building things and the process and procedures for all that. It's what works for you all. But ultimately, if it's not easy to use, it's not going to get used. And we see that time and time again with a CRM.
I love to ask you before we close up, what is one piece of advice that you would give to builders that want to do better by their buyers, or like where should they start?
Yeah, and thanks for incorporating my motto of do better in the question. So I met a builder. Again, this was from my OKC trip last week, and they mapped out their entire customer journey, and they said that they were specifically hunting for friction. And I just love that mentality. To me, that's the first place to start is hunt for the friction. And once you've identified points of friction, look to solve them. Foundation, we believe that we solve for 98% of what a builder can find during that process. And I would just welcome builders to join us, help us find that last 2%.
Nice. I love that. I do like to be branded for you, so I did my research.
Appreciate
Awesome. If you have builders or if we have builders listening that want to connect with you, they want to learn more, what would be the best way that they can find you and search Foundation?
Yeah, so we have a website, buildwithfoundation.com. I don't have any social media except for LinkedIn, but I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so I'm sure you'll drop a link there. You can always email me at brett@buildwithfoundation.com as well. But yeah, LinkedIn's probably the best way to reach out to me.
Thank you so much for being on today. I am very excited to hear what all of our listeners think about this topic. I think there's a lot of things where we talk about very conceptually, oh, we need to improve our buyer experience. It's great. Everybody wants to do that. But actually having a guide and a roadmap to do that is really helpful. So I would love to hear your guys' feedback, what you thought of this episode. If any questions came up while you were listening, drop those in the comments and follow us. All of that interaction really helps not only me on the podcast, but also helps me get better guests, more guests about topics that you actually care about. So send us all of your feedback. I would love to hear. And I'm sure Brett will be in the comments as well if you have specific questions for him. But thank you again for being here and follow. And we will see you in our next one. Bye, everybody.
Bye.